We're going to move on to the Giants, which is another team that looks pretty terrible to me.
There's very
we don't tell me about the Giants real quick, and then we'll dive into some players that we really don't need to talk about too much.
Yeah, they come from Joe Judge, which is control the clock, bleed clock, so not a ton of plays being run. In fact, I have them projected for 57 below league average in my projections right now, towards the bottom of the list in total plays, which just means less offense for people to eat on. And Joe Judge also is big into being unpredictable and spreading the wealth. We don't know exactly what that will mean for Saquon because he got hurt in week 1 last year. We never saw how he would be used under Judge. But ultimately, it's just one of those offenses that's going to be gross as long as Daniel Jones is the quarterback and Judge is there with Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator. Like somehow they brought this guy back despite ranking 30th or below in all offensive categories last year. He's a loser. He's a horrible play caller. And there's very, very little outside of Saquon Barkley. Maybe there's nobody I am looking for on this team right now.
So with that said, let's dive into the Giants.
Yeah, can't wait.
Real quick, I can't. We don't even need to talk about this guy too much. But Daniel Jones at quarterback, 345 for 532 is your projection. A little over 3,800 yards, 23 TDs, 14 picks. That's good enough for your QB 28/27 on your 2 lists. Obviously, not someone who's a viable starter in any sense. I mean, if you're in maybe in a 20-team league, maybe you get him as your as like I don't know. I don't even know what you would call it. I mean, I like Galaday as a wide receiver. I really do, just in general. Of course, Barkley is a monster at running back if healthy, but I cannot tell you how little I would want to be in the Daniel Jones business.
Right. And that kind of suggests the whole offense. You're like, yeah, I like Barkley and Galaday as players, but when you're attached to a quarterback like this, who I think is a bum, like there's no way to put it around it. I don't think there's hope for Daniel Jones. Maybe I'm wrong. His rookie year as a preseason, he was looking nice and sharp. We haven't seen that since there, and I don't think Jason Garrett's going to do him any favors. There is the little bit of rushing upside. I have him for 64 rushes, 352 and 1 TD, assuming he doesn't trip over himself in the middle of the field with no one near him like last year. There's no real upside to him. There's so many guys I'd rather target in his draft range that I'm not bothering with the Daniel Jones experience at all this year.
Yeah, I think we've given him around enough airtime. All right, let's move to Saquon Barkley. This is a guy who, man, he was the toast of the town a year ago. I don't know. Was it 2 years ago? A year ago? I know he got hurt really early last year.
So, yeah, as a rookie was his best year. Remember, we were predicting that one big time. We had him at like RB4 on the big board, 4th overall. He's a rookie. He's done nothing. Ended up having 2,200 yards, 90 catches, and like 10 TDs. He's a monster.
He's a great running back.
Unbelievable.
Really is. But I mean,
I'm with you. Maybe besides Christian McCaffrey, the best like all-around threat at the position.
He's great. I mean, I've never believed in the team he's been on, and they might seem worse than usual this year, which is really saying something. But anyway, the stat line that you got 256 for 1,126 yards, 9 touchdowns, 68 catches for around 503 touchdowns. That's good enough to be your RB11 on your projection board, RB10 on the big board. Man, that's so much I mean, I guess that's a commentary a little bit on maybe getting injured and a lot on being on just an absolutely garbage team.
Yeah, I think it's both of those things that factor in with Saquon. Horrible line, horrible Daniel Jones. Like, there's not much more to it than that. I think they're completely hamstringing, as well as horrible Jason Garrett. Like, the triumvirate of shit here. It sucks that he is such a great talent strapped to this awful situation. Now, if anybody can supersede these types of situations, it's a guy like Saquon, who, as we were saying, I do truly believe beyond Christian McCaffrey is the best dual threat back in the game. If anyone was ever going to threaten Christian McCaffrey's status as #1 running back, should they play all 16, I think it would be Saquon Barkley in the right offense. That's not Jason Garrett. That's not alongside Daniel Jones. It's too bad. I hope someday whether the Giants get a better quarterback and play caller or Saquon goes to a new team, I'd love to see what this guy could do without these shackles on him. But until they're gone, I just think his ceiling is ultimately capped. Even though it should be limitless, it's capped because of everything around him.
All right, let's talk about another guy who I think's a good baller, Kenny Galaday. 68 catches, almost 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, he really goes up and gets balls. I remember watching him with the Lions last year. And I mean, he really would go up in traffic and come down with some that you would not expect a guy to come down with. Sterling Shepard, the #2 option, you've got him right around your wide receiver 70 on both lists, 60 catches, 630 yards, 3 touchdowns. hard to get too excited about these guys. You got Galaday as your 33 on your projection board, 30 on the big board.
Yeah, I think I might, if anything, be underselling Shepard a little bit. There's just no upside to him, in my opinion. But he has very steadily, like if you're in a PPR league and you just want a high floor, I believe it's something like he has never seen less than 5 targets in a game when he's active the whole time. He's had like 4 catches in all of them but 1. So like there's a floor there. But I think that's all you're getting, especially with Golladay now arriving. Certainly going to be the biggest red zone tech there. Certainly going to be the biggest deep threat there. If anyone's going to emerge, the one thing Jason Garrett did well as a play caller was pepper his number ones, whether it was Des Bryant, whether it was Miles Austin, Terrell Owens going back. They had some monster wide receiver ones, but to me, I think that was a lot more about Tony Romo and less about Jason Garrett. And when you don't have that quarterback that can then deliver the mail quite as well, that's going to hurt. Daniel Jones did throw, I think it was like a top 15 deep ball according to PFF, but I don't know. You just watch the guy, and I'm not sure I buy into any of those analytics. So, yeah, I don't mind Golladay, especially since he got hurt. His draft price is going down to like 6, even sometimes early 7. There's some real upside there, given that peppering of the wide receiver one I was mentioning. But overall, it's kind of the same point with Saquon, same point with everyone here. Until there's a better play caller and quarterback in place, it's really hard for me to get excited about any of these guys. Saquon's really just a bet on volume. I don't know that Golladay, surrounded by some pretty good receivers around him, will see enough targets to really be fully viable. Last real quick point, though, in the backfield, I did want to mention Devontae Booker played all the first-team snaps in the first preseason game. There's nobody really behind him if and when, if Saquon is to get hurt, and we've seen that be a commonplace thing here. Booker seems like he would step right in and be like an 80% snap player. So ultimately, he's worth a late-round stab, especially if you own Barkley as a handcuff. But even if not, this guy could come into some viable stats, especially if they're bringing Saquon down a little slow to begin the year.
All right, cool. I also just want to say, anybody watching, I see a few comments showing up about the Giants and some other decent questions. Once we do the next team, Washington, we'll dive into any comments you guys got. Probably be 10, 12 minutes before we get into that. So thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. We're not ignoring you, I promise. Okay. All right. Let's do tight ends real quick for the Giants. Evan Ingram, 55 catches, 605, 3 touchdowns. Remember when there was all this promise in Evan Ingram's, in his career? And then Eli Manning and Daniel Jones came along, and now, man, it's just like, I don't know. And you ended up ranking him tight end 21 on your projections.
Yeah, it's tough because there is so much athleticism and ability here. I want to believe in him. And Jason Garrett has peppered his tight ends. In fact, Ingram led the team in targets last year. So I should be higher on him, but he's always getting hurt. And again, the quarterback situation isn't great. And even though he led the team in targets last year, he didn't do jack shit with them. So he's just, I kind of project him in a way that says, I don't want this guy. He might beat these projections by a little bit, but even so, is tantalizing as he can be with that athleticism he has. Too many drops, too many injuries, too much of a headache. Then they bring in Kyle Rudolph to compete with him, and a good red zone threat in his own right, Kyle Rudolph. Another situation of tight ends potentially nibbling at each other and just ruining the other one's value. That's happening a lot in this division, unfortunately. But that seems to be the case for these guys. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.